All the girls are in love with his smile and his laugh and, yeah, but it never went to his head. He never had that jock personality attached with his popularity.
Cameron was very keen to be drafted. He'd received a letter from the Geelong Football Club again saying that they were interested in drafting him. He's last year in the under-18 competition, which is the one most are drafted from. Cameron had an opportunity to play in a fairly major practice match, and unfortunately a player comes through and connected and done serious damage to his shoulder.
He discovered that he would have to have surgery, but he was anticipating still being drafted.
I vividly remember the day that we watched the draft on TV, waiting for that name to be called out.
It went right through and his name was never called, and he was absolutely devastated.
Not being drafted was such a shock to him and such a blow that he still wanted that competitive urge that was inside him to do something. And I said, well, what are you going to do? You haven't been drafted. He said, I'm going into the army.
It was probably a rash decision because I've seen guys that have missed out but then kept the eye on the dream and got redrafted at a later stage. But certainly, in my eyes, he was good enough to be drafted at that stage.
At the time, we were shocked because we just assumed that he would probably give the football one more year.
He went for his medical and then the army rejected him because of the shoulder. So he decided, I'm going to challenge them on this.
Here's a look.
We got letters from his specialist who did his shoulder.
Hope you pass that fitness test tomorrow.
And he got a reply, we have accepted you, be ready to go in January of 2000.
Right away. I'll be in touch later. Give it all you got now.
They weren't allowed to have any contact when they first started their initial training. And when he was able to make his first phone call to us, he wasn't really too impressed. He said, it's pretty intense, they're in your face, they're doing this. And I think they'd probably targeted him because he was such a big boy for his age. But that didn't last long. I got a call a week or two later saying that it was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
We got a very pleasant surprise when we were invited to their passing out parade at Kapuka. And there it was. Private Cameron Bird, Most Outstanding Soldier Award. And we thought, wow.
And the Most Outstanding Soldier for 4 Platoon is Private Bird, Royal Australian Infantry.
He had the opportunity to apply to do the commando training, which he did, he got through. So he felt very privileged that they'd accepted him and he was going to do it at such a young age.
You can't see people like this from, even if they're just about standing on them.
So there's not actually a special way of putting the stuff on your face. It's just as long as your face is all covered.
As long as it's covered, you can put it on however you like.
That's camouflage too.
You don't smile out in the bush. Jesus. It's not a happy appearance out there, is it? There's no laughing and joking and smiling out there.
A commando physically is probably the equivalent to an elite athlete, Olympic standard. You need to be bright, intellectually able to be a commando because these men need to make emotionally and intellectually sound decisions when they're at their most fatigued, and to be able to handle adversity and things going wrong when they're at their most physically drained, both mentally, spiritually and intellectually. Cameron was 19 years old when he graduated from the Commando Reinforcement Cycle. I don't know of many others who've graduated at such a young age.
This is our front gate.
I met Cameron in early 2000. We were both junior soldiers in 4AR Commando, which is now the 2nd Commando Regiment. And this particular night, someone had organised a boxing tournament in the barracks, which was not kosher really. One of my other mates was on the card, and everyone was saying, "Oh, you're going to be fighting this Beardy bloke," and I'm going, "Who's this Beardy? I don't know who he is." Everyone started chanting, "Beardy, Beardy," and next thing you know, this huge bloke comes walking up the stairs, and I said to my mate, "I think you're stuffed, eh?" Cam won, and my mate got a blood nose, and that was the end of that. But at the end of the fight, Cameron made sure he was all right, and yeah, that's the kind of bloke he was. He was always very, very caring and compassionate. We actually ended up in the same platoon together prior to deploying to East Timor. It was a peacekeeping deployment, but he really threw himself into it. Cameron then deployed to Iraq. Nothing against what the boys are doing over there, but I think he was a little bit sort of jaded with that deployment. He really sort of wanted to be at the tip of the spear, and I think he felt an element of disappointment there that he hadn't really been at the forefront of the fighting over there. That's really sort of what he was interested in. He discharged from the army in 2004.
Cameron went into some private security work, and look, that lasted for, I think it was about a year and a half or something, but Cameron really, he didn't enjoy it. And then he got an idea of what the outside world was like, and he rang me multiple times and said he felt like a monkey in a cage.
And when he re-enlisted, he really put himself into it 100%.
I won't see you for another 3 weeks when I come down in BRL, so...
And then we found out we were going to Afghanistan in 2007.
Be safe, and I'll look forward to seeing you all at Christmas time. Bye. See you later. Love you all.
I thought Iraq was the big thing, and I go, "Oh, well, it won't be as dangerous as Iraq, will it?" He goes, "Mum," he said, "it's more dangerous." And I thought, oh, here we go again, Oh, well, I said to him, "Just be careful, And he goes, "No, you don't tell me to be careful. This is what I do." He said, "Look," he said, "it could happen to me." He said, "It could happen to anyone, anytime. We know the dangers, but it's just our job."
He made mention to his mother that he would die young. What he meant by that, I don't know.
Mum didn't like it because being a mother had said, "No, don't talk like that, Cameron." So Cameron basically didn't mention anything about it again, but yeah.
Cameron always felt that it was for the benefit of Australia that they were over there because of all the terrorism. I once asked him, I said, "Do you think it's of any benefit?" And he goes, yeah, definitely.
There is a gap in the collective communal understanding of the war on terror and Australia's part within that war.
Yeah, children moving left to right.
But for over 10 years now, young Australian men and women have been prepared to go to another country so that that country couldn't be used as a place where people would train to launch attacks on our way of life. And we probably don't realise that.
Well, for 2 Commando Regiment, our experience in Afghanistan has been enduring. We've had 20 rotations, and a rotation ranges from about 4 to 6, 7, 8 months. Unfortunately, we've had to share our part of Australia's casualties. We've had 12 commandos killed in action, and unfortunately we've suffered 1 killed in action whilst preparing for deployment.
Australia's Special Forces units have the longest presence in Australia's longest war.
I went to Afghanistan to do a documentary tour of duty and feel to this day some gratitude towards Cam because he was one of the ones who thought, well, he's here to do his job, we might as well help him.
Protection, let's go, facing that way.
At the end of the day, we're just everyday people. We come to work, we do our work, and then we go home to our families. It's not like the movies. We do a job and we just get on with the job.
The commandos had been in Afghanistan since 2005.
Stand by for fire support.
They're the sharp end of the spear. They do the hard fighting.
Let's go.
And of course it is so different to the battlefields that we know well from Gallipoli and Tobruk, etc.
Mate, we've got contact to our right and contact to our left.
This is a battlefield that occupies a human space where you don't know the difference between a farmer with a rifle and an insurgent. They might be one and the same thing. So discriminating between friend and foe in a circumstance like that is extraordinarily difficult.
In regards to searching of people, I think you need to take it in a very humane way. First of all, you want to deal with any threat. You quick pat down to make sure they don't have a weapon, and then you take a step back. You treat them how you would want to be treated if you were going to be searched.
I think it's essential for you to maintain a sense of humanity when you're conducting combat operations. It can be very chaotic. Some civilians will run and just run straight through the middle of an engagement area. A lot of times it's more important the shot that you don't take as opposed to the shot that you do take.
The commandos were in the thick of the fighting, and some very intense fighting, and often against a very competent insurgent force. Luke Worsley, of course, was the first commando killed in action, and he was with Cam Baird and some others. This is another one of these battles fought in a human space where a woman picks up a weapon. You can hear children crying in the background.
It was the 22nd of November 2007. It was sort of early evening. We'd received new orders to basically move to this area. There were some guys there that were manufacturing IEDs, which means basically it was a bomb-making facility. They were members of the Taliban.
Our team commander got pretty seriously ill, so Cam stepped up. That was his first operation as a team commander.
It was an operation at night into an enemy location. We made entry and there was a significant firefight within the compound.
We were engaged by a machine gun. And then there was somebody from another side that had opened up with an AK-47, and they just continued firing in towards that entry point. It's called the fatal funnel. When you come in through a doorway, like people generally direct their fire into the doorway because they know that's where people come in. One of our team members, Luke Worsley, was one of the first guys in. As he came in, he actually identified where the fire was coming from, and he was able to give us a target indication. And then unfortunately he's been killed. What happened next? There was a lot of dust, a lot more fire. Cameron had identified that there was a bloke that was down. He's called out man down. And Cameron, myself, and another operator, we basically went over and we picked Luke up. We dragged him back out through the entry point of the compound. Once that handover was complete, that's when Cameron made his way back into the compound and basically sort of took charge of his team.
I wasn't too sure exactly what was happening, but Cam, the speed in which he got to handle the situation, it's just unbelievable. He was able to give an accurate indication of where, this fire was coming from. He went in front of the team. He, threw grenades. He was firing his weapon. He was telling us where to go. It was just amazing,
He ended up neutralising a couple of the enemy threats, and which resulted in the compound being secured.
Another member of my team manoeuvred through the firefight to actually get to a baby, a newborn baby.